So today, we're doing comfort food.
Yeah.
And you got a couple of things planned for us. We're going to do sort of an any time of year, almost kind of snack food, bar food, comfort
Yeah.
food. And then we're going to do something that's a little heartier so that as we move into the cold months.
Sort of that stick to your ribs.
Exactly. So why don't you let everybody know what we're doing this time?
So we're going to do buffalo cauliflower.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of buffalo wings, we're doing buffalo cauliflower. And I've got two different recipes for that. One's breaded, one's not. I'm going to do the breaded one on the video.
Right.
Because it's the more complicated version. The other one's sort of a shake and bake. You basically shake it with the onion and garlic powder in a bag, then put it in the oven and roast it. And then, and I'll talk about that a little bit later.
Okay.
We're going to do a vegan blue cheese.
Right,
with
because
that.
you need something to dip those
Yeah.
those hot wings
Yeah.
or hot bites.
Right. And you get celery sticks. And
Oh yeah, and we've used it as salad dressing. We've
Oh,
done
yeah.
all sorts of things with it. But
and then the shepherd's pie. So we got a nice sort of stew in there, and then we top it with potatoes, bake it, and get nice crispy brown potatoes on top. So
and once again, as we always say, all of our recipes are jumping off points. And I think this, like any other, like for example, the Buffalo Cauliflower Bites. We like spicy stuff.
yeah,
You could use less spicy hot sauce. You could use barbecue sauce.
yeah.
You can basically use anything that you want, so you can mess around with that. You don't necessarily have to do cauliflower.
Well, and one of the things I noticed in the buffalo cauliflower, when I added the sweetener to it, so I'm doing agave and hot sauce,
Right.
the sweetness tended to bring down the spice a little bit.
Sure.
So
So there's that. We haven't tried it, but it would be interesting trying different vegetables. Certainly broccoli would be a natural, but I wonder about doing things like buffalo potato cubes or something like that. That could be fun.
yeah,
And we'll get into this as we actually go through the recipes. But the shepherd's pie is just a vegetable filling, and that's a good chance to clean out the vegetable drawer.
yeah. And as far as like the spice mixes, and again we'll talk a little bit more as we get into it, you can start varying the direction you want to take that. If you want to go Italian or Indian or Middle Eastern, Asian.
Exactly.
So you can start just sort of playing with spices and that, and just move directions around it.
Yep.
Swap out veggies.
So should we jump in?
So I'm going to start with the simple one. It's going to be the blue cheese. So let's get going. So this makes about a cup and a half of blue cheese. It's really simple to go together. It uses two different types of tofu. We have a silken tofu, which we use as the creamy base, and we have a sprouted tofu, this is the one you'll find in the refrigerated section.
Right. So the silken is the one that comes in that box that you have to cut open, and it sits on the grocery store shelves.
Right.
And the sprouted is the one that's in the refrigerated section.
Right. Now we're using miso, which adds a little bit more cheese flavor and umami. And we've got two different types in the house. We have the white and the red. And you can get those at
Asian markets.
Asian markets.
More and more supermarkets are carrying them. If you haven't played around with it, it's really kind of an interesting ingredient to put in things like salad dressings and sauces and things like that.
And it does tend to last a long time.
Yes.
So
Stick it in the fridge, and it'll last for a really long time. So
I've added the silken tofu, the nutritional yeast, my spices there, which is the onion and garlic. I added the apple cider vinegar and the miso. And that we're going to blend up so it's nice and smooth.
So basically you dump everything but the sprouted tofu into the
And the
food
dill.
process.
And the dill.
And the dill into the food processor, and then just zap it until it's nice and
Right.
creamy and smooth.
Now, I did it in 3 stages, so opened it up, scraped down the sides, blended, scraped down the sides.
Because you wanted to get that creamy smoothness.
Yeah, and I wanted to make sure everything was well blended.
Mhm.
You don't do the dill because it'll basically turn it green, and you kind of want to have the dill specks in there because I think that makes it look like a blue cheese.
Okay, fair enough.
So that's sort of a visual.
Mm-hmm.
And then you put in the sprouted tofu and you just pulse it a couple of times.
Right.
I might have gone a little bit overboard on this one.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is another thing where you can experiment and you can always pulse it a little bit more and get the texture that you want.
Yeah, because you kind of want to have the dual texture because you want to kind of have like those chunks in there.
Right.
And again, that's sort of a visual.
Mm-hmm.
But and that's about it. So
Well, except for the taste
Yeah.
test.
well, that's why you have celery sticks on.
Exactly.
So really easy, simple to go together, and stick it in the refrigerator.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that. That's
Yeah.
it's a store it in the fridge.
Mm-hmm.
Lasts probably a couple weeks.
I'd say about 2 weeks, yeah.
Yeah.
And I've done it on, well, we did sort of a veggie chicken sandwich,
Mm-hmm.
and actually I threw a little bit of hot sauce on that too. But
Yeah, you can use it as a spread on a sandwich. You can use it, as we said before, as a salad dressing.
I think
You
we
can-
did it on potatoes, baked potatoes once.
Right. We can, and certainly you can do a vegetable platter and make that be one of
Mhm.
the spreads or the spread,
Yeah.
depending on what you're doing.
So, but we'll jump into the next one. Which
Actually, say before we jump into the next one, let's remind everybody that we'd like to thank our friends at the library, the Indianapolis Public Library, for making all of this happen, and let them know that the library has a really fantastic curated list of resources,
Mhm.
of films, books, all sorts of things that are available through the library if you want to learn more about whole food, plant-based, and oil-free cooking. And that you can get that list whether you are part of the Indianapolis Public Library system or not, and then get those books and resources through your local library.
Yeah.
And also that the program is made possible by the Indianapolis Foundation Library Fund through a grant through the Indianapolis Public Library Foundation. So thanks to all of those groups who do really fantastic work in promoting good stuff for the community.
Yeah. And they have some nice programs in there. We recently were there for a vegan whole life.
Little kind of expo
Yeah.
thing, yeah. So there's lots of great programming out there, lots of great resources if you want to learn more about not just vegan eating, but vegan eating that can have a real impact on your health and your community.
So we'll get started on our next one. This is going to be the Buffalo Cauliflower. This is the breaded version again, because like I said, it's a little bit more complicated.
Right. And just to remind everybody, the not breaded version is available in the recipe section, but we're not going to do a demo on that.
No, it's just really easy.
Mhm.
So, so here's basically my layout, the equipment and stuff. We're going to do all-purpose flour. It's easy to get. We have our spices: paprika, garlic, salt, pepper. We have a milk, cauliflower, our hot sauce, and some agave. And these are the tools I'm going to be using. So.
And when you say milk, you mean nut milk or
Yes,
some sort of milk
yes.
alternative.
Milk, yeah. I said that in the
Yeah.
in the
I
instructions.
just want everybody to be clear that we are dairy free as well.
Yes. And I mix the spices and the flour together just to make sure everything's broke up. There's not a lump of like salt somewhere or
Right. Yeah, this is a good tip too. If you're going to make a batter, mix the spice mix into the dry ingredients before you start adding wet, and it'll just come out a lot more uniform.
And I'm going to add the wet in stages because I want that to help break down any lumps and
Plus, yes, there is an amount, but you really are doing a consistency more than a specific amount
Right.
of liquid.
Yeah, if this looks right, then I can stop there. If I need more, add more.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so do it in stages, take your time. You want to have a nice, I think almost pancake batter.
Right. And again, as we've mentioned many times, you can adjust the seasoning any way that you want. If you want more hot spices in there, that's great. If you know paprika is too much for you, you can leave that out. However you want to make this, make it your own.
Yeah.
Okay? And if you come up with a great signature flavor, share it in the comments and share it with the rest of us.
Yep. Now, doing the cauliflower.
It's probably the hardest part.
Yeah, I was going to say, I tried breaking off a few of them, but they weren't going. But with a nice sharp knife, I cleared enough of a spot, and I found the stalk and trimmed that away. And
Just go slow.
yes,
Take your time. Make sure you be safe. And remember, a sharp knife is a lot safer than a dull knife.
and yeah, know where your fingers are and where the blade is at all times. So,
This is definitely a take your time
yep.
thing.
And I'm just taking off some of the big ones. You get the smaller ones as you head toward the top. As you can see, there's small ones. And then it's just break the big ones up into handleable, being able to handle them, chunks.
Right. Yeah, basically this is a make the size that you want.
Right.
But do remember that the coating is going to make them a little bit bigger.
Right. But you want to have something that you can dip and
Right.
get a hold of. And this is kind of finger food.
Yes. I mean, you could do huge chunks, but then it's going to be hard to handle, as well as the cauliflower might not cook all the way through.
Right.
So, it's nice to have a cooked cauliflower texture rather than a raw cauliflower
Yeah.
texture.
And I'm just sort of setting up for my assembly assembly line pattern here.
You've got one of your favorite toys out there. You've got the baking sheet with the pad on it.
Yeah, that's the grill mat. It's a little thicker and stronger than a parchment paper.
And it's reusable.
It's lighter, thinner than a
Silicone mat?
silicone
Yeah.
mat.
Although you could use one of those if you
Yeah,
have it.
you could. And when I go to get these off, you'll see why this really is the best way to do this. But these mats are really great because you can also get grill marks through them if you do put them on a grill.
Right, on an outdoor grill or something like
Yeah.
that, right. But once again, if all you have is either a silicone mat or parchment paper, don't let that
Yeah.
keep you from making this, because either of those will work.
Yeah. And so, now just stick those in the oven, and I'll finish up the rest off camera. But and then this is after the first 15 minutes in the oven, and you see I just slide the mat right off of the tray.
And they all break free.
Well, I bring in the spatula, and that gives me, I can hold the mat. It cools down pretty quickly, so I really didn't need the glove, but I can put some weight down on that mat with the spatula, and I'm using a plastic spatula. And now I've got a tablespoon of agave in there, and I'm eyeballing about a quarter cup of hot sauce.
And once again, this is a place where if this is not to your taste, if it's too spicy or not spicy enough,
Yeah.
use a different hot sauce, use a barbecue sauce.
I was going to suggest barbecue sauce, yeah.
You can really make this your own.
You could probably use this technique for an Asian and do teriyaki.
Like a teriyaki, a sticky teriyaki.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of blue cheese, maybe do a peanut sauce.
There we go. We may have.
I might have to do some experimenting.
Yes. Okay, so now you're putting these back on.
Yeah, I kind of spread them out and then realized I need to put them on the pan. And now I'm going to spread them out, because what I want to do is I want to brush on that hot sauce, and I want to cook that in. So I did the first 15 minutes. I've flipped these, so they're now cooking on a different side, and I've done a quick coat on that, and these go back in for another 10 to 15 minutes.
Now, could you do this in an air oven?
I think the batter is right on the edge, so that's going to be the big concern part. I mean, at that point, I could have.
So you could do the second part in an air oven, and you might get something that's a little bit crisper if you wanted to.
Yeah.
But you can do it all in the regular oven. You're not using convection or
Right.
anything fancy like that.
Yeah. Now, but if you did the batter maybe a little thicker, you might be able to do it all in the air oven.
I kind of like, I mean, I know it's using two different appliances, but I kind of like the idea of doing the first part in the regular oven or convection oven if you have it.
And then crisping up.
And then coating it and, getting it really nice and crispy in the air fryer.
Yeah. So, and now it's just breaking it free. And that
Put it
was
all together.
Yeah, that was the second shelf.
Mm-hmm.
So
So you've made so much you had to do 2 trays.
yeah,
But you're just getting it all off the mat. This has all been coated and
it's been
baked
breaded
for the second time.
Yeah, breaded, baked, flipped, spiced,
Mm-hmm.
or brushed on with whatever we're doing.
Basted, whatever you want to call it. And now you're just plating up.
Mm-hmm. And it makes quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
It's a full head of
I was going to say
cauliflower.
it's a full head of cauliflower. So
And obviously you could make multiple heads of cauliflower if you were doing this for a crowd. Or if you're doing this for a crowd, you could buy those bags of pre-cut cauliflower
florets.
florets, thank you, which we have done.
Yeah.
And those are just fine.
And pull out the blue cheese.
I like what you've done here. I like serving it on the side because if it sits on there too long,
Right.
it just kind of makes everything.
Well, and this way
mushy.
people also have control. If they want to have a big glop of it, they can. If they want to just have it thin. And that's why I even left the spoon in that one, is so that you could use
Right.
the spoon and have more control. So, and then this I'm just going to stick on the oven to keep it warm, because there will be seconds.
Right. Yeah, and actually that's a good hint. Keeping it warm will also help to keep it crisp, because this one does have a nice little, bite, a little bit of a shell to it, which is kind of nice. And if you don't like that, just do the non-battered version.
Yeah, and that's easy. With that one, again, you do the sort of shake and bake. You do the baking, and then when you come to flip it, you do the marinade on it, and then just keep going. So the last part of that is pretty much what you would do with the other one as well.
Right.
So it was just the battering is the only difference.
And there, since you don't have the batter, you could do the whole thing in the air oven.
Oh, yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
Or the air fryer, if you wanted to.
So, so that's real simple. And now we'll do the shepherd's pie.
Right.
And,
Last recipe. This is.
and this is a little bit more complicated, but it is easy to go through.
And it looks really pretty.
Yeah. Getting the toasting little bits on the potato, that I think is
Well, and you give a little trick for that, but we'll let you. We'll keep people in suspense.
So we got potatoes, we've got mushrooms, carrots, celery, onion, garlic, thyme, paprika. I got tomato paste, some water, onion, garlic. Those go in the mashed potatoes, and then green peas and the nut milk or soy milk in here, as you can see.
And again, you can use any milk substitute you want.
Now, in the instructions, I have you boil the potatoes, but I've actually started moving a lot more toward the pressure cooker. And
The
so,
electric pressure cooker.
yeah, so I'm putting these into some good-sized chunks, as you can see. I've got a little bit of water on the bottom there. I've got a steam basket, And so I'm just gonna load that up with the potatoes.
Mhm.
And then it's about 15 minutes of high pressure,
Mhm.
or pressure on the pressure cooker, natural release, and they're done.
Right. Yeah, but again,
And they're
if
not
you,
soggy.
if you don't have a pressure cooker, don't let that keep you from doing this.
No, you can do it with just boiled water. And like I said, that's in the instructions. So,
Now, we've talked about this, but you know, you've got your celery, your carrot, your onions in this, which is kind of classic. You could add green pepper, you could add bell pepper, you could add spicy peppers if you wanted
Yeah.
something hot. You could really add any
well, and not
combination.
all the peppers are hot.
No. You can really do any combination of vegetables that you want. As we move into colder weather, you can make this as hearty as you want.
Yeah.
Now, you've got mushrooms in here that you're going to do. I don't want to get too far ahead
Yeah,
of
I'm
us,
going to do carrots and
Right.
onion next.
but you're going to do those in slices, and they kind of melt away when you
Yeah.
do that. If you want something a little bit heartier, you could do chunks of mushrooms.
Mhm.
You could use TVP, textured vegetable protein.
Yeah.
You could use tofu, the firmer tofus. This is really one of those things that's very versatile.
Okay. One thing I want to point out is I am quartering the large carrots, and the other small ones I'm going to do in halves. But again, watch where your fingers are, watch where the knife is, and be careful.
Yes.
Because carrots are tough, and the knife can get away from you easily.
Yes. And this, again, is one of those places where you want to maintain your tools, and maintaining a sharp edge on your knives is one of the best things you can do for yourself in the kitchen.
So I've got the celery and carrots in now. I'm going to do onion next. I've got the pan on low,
Mhm.
so it's like this. This is an induction top, and I can control it by temperature as well as like the percentage of power. And I've got it set for like 130, so it's just going to warm things.
But this is the same thing that you've shown people a
Yeah.
lot of times. Cooking without oil, and I want to point that out here, that you're sauteing these vegetables without oil.
Oh, yeah.
Just means going low and slow. It's going to take a little bit of extra time to develop that color and that flavor, but you're eliminating all of that oil that
Yeah.
we really don't need in our diets.
Yeah. Well, also the thing on this particular stovetop is when you start cold, it senses the temperature and it wants to crank it to full power.
Right.
And I don't want it to get away from me while I'm slicing other ingredients.
Right. So get to know your oven, your stovetop, whatever it is. Everything's going to have its little
Yes.
idiosyncrasies, and if you learn those and work with them, your cooking experience is just going to be a whole lot more pleasant.
Read and understand your instruction manual.
Yeah, some of that's not in the manual, and you just kind of have to figure it out for yourself.
So
Now here you've got a little more heat going because I
Yeah.
see some steam coming up.
as soon as I put in the mushrooms, I cranked it up.
Mhm.
So it's up to the boiling point. Let it go for about 10-15 minutes. So it's cooked down the mushrooms and the onion. Carrots are still tough, so they take a while longer to cook.
Mhm.
So I'm adding the garlic. I'm going to stir that around, let it sit for about another minute, and then I'll add the other ingredients. And then there's going to simmer for a while.
Mhm.
So, and again, you can add as much or as little garlic as you like. To us, there's not really a limit. But
I'm sure there is. We just haven't found it.
yeah.
And once again, you can add whatever other vegetables you like. I know one of the things we like to add to this is corn.
Yeah.
But corn, edamame,
Broccoli.
broccoli, yes, cauliflower.
Not the buffalo one. I think that would be too much.
Yeah, that's probably a little bit much. Now you're putting in
Tomato paste.
tomato paste here, and one of the things you're doing kind of after the fact is
Yeah, I
making a little
forgot.
well. Tomato paste is one of those things that
It's
there's
better
a
if you
trick.
Toast it.
Exactly. And this is, you
For-
said let it sit for 5 minutes. This is really one of those things where you want to pay attention
Yeah.
and you want to use your senses and smell it and look at it. Because the deeper and darker you can get that tomato paste without
richer-
burning it.
Yeah, the richer the flavor.
Mhm. And the first couple of times you do this, you'll probably err on the side of caution. But as you get more and more experience with this, just with working with tomato paste, you're going to be willing to take it just that little bit darker, and I think you will notice a difference.
Oh yeah. Now I added the water in segments here too,
Mhm.
because one of the things I wanted to do was work off the stuff that had stuck to the bottom.
Yes, we can use that big fancy word and say you're deglazing
I'm deglazing
the pan, but
because I
those
want
little
the fawn.
font,
Yes.
yeah. Those little bits of brown stuff that are stuck to the bottom of the pan are an enormous amount of flavor.
Yes. So we're going to let that simmer for 10, maybe 15 minutes. And the idea is you want the carrots to get soft. You still would like some body, but you don't want them crunchy.
Mm-hmm. And the reality is, grab a spoon, taste them, and make this stuff the texture that you want it.
Mhm.
If you like soft, really soft filling,
Let it
no
go.
reason you can't make it that way.
Just make sure it doesn't dry out.
Exactly. And if it does, add a little more water or stock or both.
Yeah. So,
Make it your own.
so I've added the peas. I'm going to let those warm up with just what's in there.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm going to start on the potatoes.
Right. And another toy.
And the tool of the day is my little white ricer there.
Mm-hmm.
This is really nice. I think it makes really good mashed potatoes with a lot less work,
Right.
because you're not pounding with a masher or a fork or something like that.
Now, the one thing about this is if you do like skin-on mashed
Yes.
potatoes, and we do
Yeah.
sometimes, this is going to remove the skins for you.
Yeah. Now,
I mean, I guess you could chop them up and add them back in.
yeah. Now, with doing the browning though, I kind of wanted that clear appearance.
Right.
So,
No,
yeah.
you don't always want
Yeah.
skin-on mashed potatoes, but sometimes you do.
And you do have to be careful when using this. You squeeze down, it can get a little excited.
Yes, and spray kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
But you kind of saw it there, and I think
You're-
you'll get a better shot of it in a little bit, how it just takes the skins right
yeah.
off and doesn't leave a lot of potato behind.
Now the skins can block the mesh in the bottom, as you can see right there.
Right, so you do have to,
I'm pulling away some of just the skin, and then reaching down. And at the end, I actually show off the skins. So.
okay.
But so you just load it up, squeeze it, pull out the skins, and they're just sort of brushed off the bottom, and that's it.
Once again, if you don't have a potato ricer, don't let that hold
Yeah.
you back. Mash the potatoes any way you
Mhm.
want to. A potato masher. I tend not to like potatoes that are mashed in a blender because
But-
it builds up that kind of gooiness.
Yeah, there's the skins, and you can see most of the potato is off of it.
Mm-hmm.
So.
But if you like a lot of mashed potatoes, especially if you like them without skins on them,
Yeah.
potato ricer is a nice way to go.
it,
And you mentioned it makes a really not only does it do a good job of separating out the skins, but it makes a really nice texture too.
yeah, you don't worry about the lumps or anything like that. We got a little bit high humidity in the kitchen, so my onion powder caked on me.
So that's onion powder, garlic powder.
And then I'm going to add some soy milk, and you can use whatever non-dairy milk you'd like. Soy tends to be a little bit neutral flavor.
And it's also got a creaminess to it that I
Yeah.
think a lot of milks don't.
Mhm.
If you don't like non-dairy milks, you could also use a little bit of vegetable stock.
Mhm. Yep. A couple of skins fell in. But and then just add what you think you need. So it could be anywhere from a cup to 2 cups. But you do it in segments, work your way through it, and you find the consistency you want.
Right. Now
I'm pretty much there.
yep. Well, yeah, and you're going to,
And you can see I'm sort of spreading with the spoon to see how well it spreads out and forms. So,
And it's not like you're using a big utensil or anything. You've got a teaspoon in there, and that's working for you. Now, this is the part. This is a good trick.
well, this is where you add some potato in.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
This is a nice little trick because normally what you do when making a filling like this is you make a roux with flour and vegetable broth and cook it down and add some sort of thickening agent. This is really nice and fast and easy. You've already got the mashed potatoes. Just mix them in.
Yeah.
Just take a little bit, mix them in, and you've got a nice thick kind of gravy that holds your filling together.
Right. And just go to the consistency you'd like. And you see I added just a little bit more. And again, without using flour then, you've got non-gluten.
Exactly. Yeah, you're gluten-free. So this is just a really handy trick, and you can use this any place where you want to make this kind of stew.
Now, one thing we've learned recently is that if you refrigerate potatoes,
Yes.
it changes their structure.
Right. So if you take your if you take your potatoes and refrigerate them and reheat them before you mash them and do all this stuff with them, you'll change the starch structure and lower their glycemic index, meaning that you'll get less of an insulin spike when you eat this, which is great for people who
Yeah,
who
I
are
don't
worried
know if
about-
that works after you mash them, though.
I'm pretty sure it does, but
Well, because now what I did with this is I did refrigerate this overnight.
yes,
And I baked it the next day.
good point.
But I had everything ready. So-
Maybe one of the knowledgeable people out there in YouTube land will let us know if that still works.
Now, when putting the potatoes on, I want to point out one thing. It's got a little bit of a trick here. You don't want to push down. You want to sort of do side to side and break it up, spread it. Because if you push down, all you can do is push down into that soft filling,
Right.
and it's going to squirt up elsewhere. So you can see I've got it all out.
Right. You've also been really careful to get it right up to the edge.
And now I'm doing sort of this trench along the edge, and that's for when the sauce does come up and start bubbling up in the oven.
Instead of rolling off, it
So,
stays in.
instead of immediately falling off into the bottom of your oven, it sort of tries to capture it. And then I'm going to show you the big difficult trick on making those nice edges, crispy edges. And you can see it's really complicated. Just drag a fork across,
Right.
and you get these nice little strips,
Those little raised ridges.
and
Or-
those will toast more than the other stuff, so you get those nice little bits. And if you're trying to be neat, and I mean, here I'm just sort of throwing it together and getting a little rustic, but if you want to really do like neat designs or patterns, you really want to play with this, and you don't like it, just take this back of a spoon and
Smooth it out.
smooth it
and
out
try
and
again.
try again. So
It's like
again,
it's like a potato Etch-a-Sketch.
So, yeah. So, and like I said, I refrigerated overnight. The next day, threw it in the oven, and after 30 minutes in the oven. Now I let it sit out for a little while after I pulled it out of the refrigerator and let it sit for an hour, and then put it in the oven. And you can see you get those nice brown edges and crispy bits.
You're going to cut into that and show us what a slice looks like. It
Yeah.
really cuts neatly too, which
Yeah.
makes if you're making this for guests or something, it makes a really nice presentation.
The first one is always the worst one.
And the other thing about this that I'd point out is if you like less potato and more vegetable, just make double the vegetable filling.
Well,
You're going to need a slightly larger pan, but
Yeah. Now I used a smaller pan actually in this because I wanted to get that sort of thick stew base in
Right.
there.
But the idea is you can use this as a base, as a jumping off point. You can change up the mix of vegetables. If one of our go-tos is frozen corn,
Yeah.
it's a nice little sweetness to it.
You can add broccoli or peppers.
Right, bell peppers are great, either fresh or the jarred ones. And then you can also change up the mash, right? So
yeah, so you could use, instead of potatoes, you can use sweet potatoes.
right, right, anything like you know, parsnips, not rhubarb, rutabaga, turnips, things like that make really nice mash. If you're not into the whole potato thing, I was thinking about this a little bit. You could do things like cauliflower rice,
Yeah.
and kind of make that into a bit of a mash. And then you can also change up the spices.
And
So you can take this in the direction of, like, you know, Mexican food or Italian food, or I'm not sure what sort of Indian food I think could be really interesting, because there are a lot of really interesting Indian potato dishes.
yeah.
So
I mean, it would be an experiment for us. I mean, because we haven't done that.
Right.
But I can't see a lot of reason. But as you said, the Asian could be the more difficult one to fit in.
right. Well, you know, if Indian food,
Yeah.
you know, definitely. Some of the other Asian cuisines might be a little bit more challenging, but you know, we're back to the play with your food idea.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I think one of the big things in this is we showed a couple of techniques. I really like the technique, excuse me, of using the potatoes or whatever mash you're doing as a thickener.
Yeah.
It's one less thing that you have to deal with. I think we did an episode a while ago on doing the oilless.
The dry roux.
Yeah. But that's one more thing that you have to make.
Right.
And if you have a gluten sensitivity, or you're having guests and you're not sure whether they have a gluten sensitivity, this takes the gluten out.
Yeah. This eliminates an entire range of problems.
Right. Plus the other technique of toasting the tomato paste.
Yeah.
So taking these ingredients that a lot of us have been using for years and kind of elevating them by just really pushing the edge of getting flavor out of them by toasting them.
Yeah.
And it's really that fine line between just really getting them nice and dark but not burning them.
Right.
And this is a place where having a little bit of stock, or having something where when it's just at that edge, you can quickly lower the temperature of the pan.
Yeah, if you notice the top of the screen there, when I'm looking down at it, you have the induction top. I have my two bowls, or my two jars of spoons for tasting, and then right between it is that squeeze bottle of water.
The squeeze bottle of water.
Which is right there, and I can just reach over, grab it, immediately have it, and that drops the temperature of the pan and helps you deglaze.
So, you know, whatever you're doing, once again, we hope that these are inspirations and takeoff points. If you want to make the recipe just the way it is, obviously we like the food, because we don't just make this for you, we actually eat it. But we also like to experiment and try new things, and we hope that we've inspired you to do the same thing. Speaking of which, we'd like to hear about your experiments. So if you try something, whether it works or it doesn't work, leave a comment, and if there's something you would like to see us try, leave an experiment. I can't promise we can get to everything, but we certainly like hearing from you.
Always open to new ideas.
Yeah. So with that, I think we've reached the end.
Yeah. So thanks for watching, and take care, and we'll see you next time.